Las tías de la música. Con la participación de Sam Kaufman como la tía Enrique, Tom O'Rourke como la tía Pablo y Aram Hachaturian como él mismo.
Las tías de la música.
Buenas noches, buenos días, buenas mañanas y buenas las tengan. En esta noche especial tenemos una persona maravillosa por la cual yo estoy maravillosamente emocionado. Vamos a hablar de las cosas más emocionantes, más bellas e inglés.
En inglés.
So I'm your beautiful aunt Fraile Pavor.
Y yo soy su tía Enrique. Bienvenidos a este tu programa donde tu tía Lucky se le olvidó tu nombre. Es porque ha de ser muy codo. Te explica lo que es el ragtime en el banjo. And yes, like your aunt Pablo said, we have a very special guest today. Here we have Aaron Jonah Lewis, who is going to talk about ragtime and banjo music. And Aaron, I don't know if you want to say hi to
Hi.
Spanish speaking people.
Hi. Hola. I no habla español. I'm so sorry. I
It's okay.
want I want to learn, but instead of learning Spanish, I learned to play music.
That's yeah,
This is a good choice. This is a good choice.
it's a good choice.
Another language, another language.
Yeah. I I hope to learn Spanish soon. A lot of my neighbors speak Spanish and we communicate in English okay, but I'd like to learn the language they speak so we can communicate better.
Yeah, yeah,
That's no
that's.
problem, mate. It's
But
okay.
it's okay. I think most of our audience at least understands English, so most of them.
We hope so.
So
The
well,
ones that doesn't speak Spanish
they're not understanding what we're saying
are
right
not
now.
gonna
So
understand
so
anything,
so it's
so
so it doesn't make a difference whatever we say now
maybe they're
because
gonna
they're not
stop
understanding.
hearing us.
But
No.
but but anyway, Aaron, I met him at a concert he gave at a friend's house. I have this friend who does concerts at her house, which is amazing. It's an amazing way to listen to music, and he performed with some ragtime that day, and I was pretty impressed. And well, between the songs, you were talking about the music, and that's what really made me think that this would be a great episode for the podcast. You know, you explaining basically what you explained that day, but expand on it. That would be, amazing because yeah, you spoke both about ragtime and the banjo, and I don't know if we should just let you talk and tell us about it.
Yeah, I can talk a lot about banjo and about ragtime. I'm really excited about these topics and I can just start, but yeah, feel free to interrupt me, ask specific questions if you want.
Yeah.
Um, I my weakness is I talk too much, so you just have to stop me.
No,
That's gonna be
this
a problem, mate.
we have 4 hour episodes, so just
That's gonna be a problem. You
do
can't
your
speak
thing.
too much. This
Okay,
is gonna be a program about 20 minutes, something like that.
okay.
Oh, no,
Uh,
no, of course not. It was a joke.
No.
Sorry.
no, well, yeah, I mean, I'm not the one editing.
Usually our shows last like 3 hours.
So yeah, just
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay, great.
please,
We'll let her rip.
please just
Yep.
Um,
let us hear you. And
so yeah, so the banjo is this really wonderful instrument. It makes a really great sound. And it's basically a drum with strings attached. So it's sometimes people confuse it with a guitar or other instruments that have strings and frets, but it has a totally different lineage.
It's
And
a snare, right?
so what's that?
It's a snare.
A snare
Pedal.
drum.
Oh, it's not it doesn't have a snare. It's just a basic drum with a wooden rim. And then there's actually, you can't see it very well, but there's a tone ring. Oh,
Hmm.
this very small ring here, or you can see it from this side. Around the edge, there's a metal ring of special kind of construction that I don't know that much about that
It's
gives.
always metal.
So yeah, there's like is a skin head, like a drum. This is the head, uh, and it's mounted on a wooden rim. But between the rim and the head, there's this thing called a tone ring, and it's a ring of metal that kind of boosts the sound. Uh, it increases the vibration.
Oh,
So, the way it works is when I pluck a string, the vibration the vibration get it travels through the bridge, which is resting on top of the head. This is the bridge. It's holding the strings above the head and it's touching the strings and the head. So the vibration travels through the bridge to vibrate the entire head, this whole construction here. And so then that vibrates and amplifies the sound. So this is like amplified music before electricity.
nice, nice,
It's
nice, nice.
beautiful.
Yeah. So this kind of instrument, um, this basic idea of you have a drum and then let's put strings on it, this exists in many different cultures all over the world. I got to play a sarod when I visited India, which is like a super banjo. It's got dozens of strings and it's an incredible instrument. And there's similar kinds of constructions in many different countries all over the world. But this particular instrument, this design and this style of instrument and the history of it is unique to America. And when I say America, I mean the United States, but it also has spread all over the world. And it has its origins. This instrument, the banjo, has its origins in Western Africa. It comes from other instruments that are similar to banjo that existed and still exist. Some of them still exist in West Africa. You know, in popular culture, at least in the US, the banjo, at least in my experience, the banjo is associated with white Southern hillbillies, which is fine because white Southern hillbillies love the banjo. But I didn't know anything about this
Beautiful one.
history, about it being older than that. It's hundreds of years old. The banjo is older than the United States of America. As long as there's been a slave trade across the Atlantic, there's been banjos in the Western Hemisphere. The oldest documentation that we have for a banjo is in the 17th century in what's now called Jamaica. That part of the country, that part of the world. So it's pretty old, and to me, it's a really great opportunity. Learning about the banjo and its history is a great opportunity to reframe this instrument from a symbol of white Southern culture, which it is, but to enlarge that to also a symbol of Black ingenuity and Black persistence and survival. Um, because people who were abducted from their homelands in Africa, um, and taken against their will to a foreign land and separated from their families, separated from their villages and their people. Um, they invented this instrument. Uh, it it was you know, it's when you think about it, it's almost miraculous. It's really incredible that people who were forced to labor for every hour of their waking lives managed to find the time to create this instrument. but it also makes sense because it's a survival mechanism to have music to be able to connect with each other, especially if you don't have the same language. Like we do have English in common, but music is really the universal language, like you said. So I think it's a really great way to connect with history in a fun way, in a way that isn't just gloomy and sad, because a lot of the past is really awful. But I think it's really important to not ignore it. We need to know about things that happened in the past and avoid practicing censorship so
I,
that we can learn from the past and do better in the future.
yeah, of course,
Yeah.
that's you're right. I just have a
So
question. I thought it was from Ireland.
no,
No,
so it's
yeah.
interesting. There is a banjo tradition in Irish music, but that came later on in the 20th century. Um, so Irish music, of course, is ancient. That goes back as long as there's been people in Ireland, there's been Irish music. But the Irish banjo was only developed about 120 years ago. So
Okay.
it has its roots in Africa. Um, African people were abducted, forced into labor, brought to the what became the United States, brought to the colonies, and generated all of this material wealth that we still enjoy today, but also generated all of this cultural wealth that we still enjoy today. And they, I was going to say they gave us. Well, they had taken from them,
No,
uh,
it's cool.
not not
It's
just the banjo, but many, many other things. As we know, at least in the U.S., most of
but
the really
sorry.
cool things
So
in popular culture come from Black
it
people.
first goes to United States and then goes to Ireland.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Wow,
Yeah,
really?
and
I
all
thought
over the
so.
world. So, a lot of the music
That's
that
super interesting.
like my first solo banjo album, Mozart of the Banjo, was all pieces by Joe Morley, who was a British banjo composer. And the banjo got to England in the mid 19th century.
No,
Yeah, it's totally wild. Like I never knew anything about this.
wow.
And yeah, and I was telling Enrique, I've been playing the banjo since 2001 or two, and I didn't know anything about any of this until about 10 years ago when I met some people who were like extreme banjo nerds and got me super interested in all of this stuff.
It's super interesting. I thought it was coming from Ireland. That was my idea, like
No, I mean
so
a lot
it's
of great
from
stuff came
Africa,
from
then
Ireland.
comes to USA and then goes to Ireland.
Yeah, to Ireland, to England, to I there banjos in India, banjos all over the world. I've seen them everywhere. And again, the sarod doesn't come from the US, but I when I was in India, I also met people who played the American banjo. They played it
Nice.
in Indian style. They played Indian music on the
Oh wow,
banjo.
that sounds
So,
amazing.
yeah, it's
That sounds
everywhere.
amazing. How is
But
it
yeah,
sounds?
it comes from the people who were enslaved in the US, and not just in the US, but also in other colonies in the Western Hemisphere. And from there, it developed, it's so the modern banjo, and this, what I have here, I have more banjos upstairs, but this isn't a modern banjo. This is 100 years old, but this is kind of like a modern banjo because it has
Wow.
frets and a flat neck. So it's sort of in some ways a little bit of a fusion with the guitar. It's like a fusion of traditional African instruments and European instruments. So that's also kind of like ragtime music is also a bit of a fusion of sort of old African music. It's not necessarily old, but traditional music coming from Africa, from African people, getting influenced and mingled up with European influences in the Western Hemisphere. So I don't know if I'm not going in a straight line here, but I'm skipping ahead to
But
ragtime music.
No, it's super interesting.
yeah,
It's good.
Yeah. Well, so when I started playing the banjo, I was interested in playing bluegrass, and then I got into playing the music that came before bluegrass that's generally like Appalachian music, clawhammer style playing, old time music. I I should have brought all these banjos down here to show you the differences between them because the banjo it's a really interesting instrument because it's not been completely standardized. There's many different kinds of banjos that you can use to play different kinds of music. And this one I have here is the one I use to play ragtime. So I got interested in going backwards in time and backwards in time. So I was playing bluegrass, which was only invented in the mid 20th century, bluegrass music. A lot of people think of it as old music, as my grandparents listened to it and whatnot, but it didn't really exist until the 1940s, and it wasn't really popular until the 1950s and 60s. And it's still popular today. It's still great music. But I got interested in, well, where did this come from? When you love a musician or a kind of music, I mean, I always tell my students, look, you don't want to listen to your favorite musician if you want to sound like them. You want to listen to what they listen to, right? So where did bluegrass come from? That's kind of what started all of this for me. So I got into this earlier music, um,
You say
basically
Apache music?
Appalachian.
Appalachian. Yeah.
Where's
It's
Appalachian? Sorry.
those are some mountains. It's a mountain
Yeah,
range.
it's a mountain range that it goes all across the eastern United States, but mostly when people talk about Appalachian music, they're talking about southern music, places like um, Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, perhaps. Uh,
And sorry to interrupt, but which time are we talking about? Like which years?
this would be well, yeah. So I started listening to the earliest recordings I could find of fiddle and banjo music, right? So that recording only started to become really available to most people around the early 20th century, like around the teens. So that's the time period, and maybe a little earlier, 1900s. That's the time period that I was learning about, and that's where a lot of people are getting their information about old time music. But of
Okay.
course, it was around before then. So there's a little bit of oral history where you talk to people whose grandparents played and their grandparents played, and you learn about this people who came from Ireland, people who came from the British Isles, from Scotland, from England, people who came from Sweden or from Hungary, from Poland. People came from all over the place and brought their music traditions, and they all got mixed up with each other in different ways. Like musicians do. They want to
Yeah.
listen to other musicians. What are you guys doing? Oh, can
Yeah,
I
yeah.
learn some of that? That's a
Yeah, of
natural thing
course.
that musicians do. Um, so from there, I was going to festivals where people play this music, and that's where I met these folks who connected me and turned me on to this style of banjo music that nowadays people call classic banjo. And that was really the most popular kind of music in the English speaking world from around the middle of the 19th century, from like the 1850s, 60s until the 1920s or so when jazz became the most popular kind of music. So the thing about classic banjo is that a lot of it hasn't been recorded that much and it's not very well known. Partly because it hasn't been recorded so much, but also because um, the way popular culture works, it's like a steamroller. We don't in popular culture we don't think about the past a whole lot unless we're doing a nostalgia thing. We don't like to, sort of a neoliberalism thing to stay in this kind of consumerist present so that we don't actually feel connected with the past. But in reality, the past is now. The past is happening still. Everything that came before is still happening. I'm not saying change doesn't happen. Everything's always changing too. But it's part of my agenda is to break down these barriers of ignorance that are built up to keep people in a tunnel vision of consumerism and, just blind habits,
Yeah.
and instead open the way for more connection, not with just the past and the ancestors, which is very important, but also with each other and with ourselves in the moment and with the land and with our descendants who are not even here yet, but they are here already. We have to think about all these things and grow our connections. So that's the big picture about all of this. But getting back to the specifics about classic banjo, it's a style of banjo playing that developed from earlier banjo styles. And I don't want to make it too confusing because there's a lot of different historical threads that we could start pulling on. But essentially, the way it's played, the way classic banjo music is played, is different from older styles of banjo playing. Older styles of banjo playing, like if you go and look at the way people in Africa play the akonting, which is one of the banjo's ancestors. It's an instrument called the akonting. And it says still people still play the banjo in this way too. It's a down picking style where you kind of pick your finger down, you're brushing your hand against the strings like this.
like a kind of funky way to play the bass,
Yeah, it's a lot like slap bass.
like
Yeah.
slap
Okay.
bass.
Yeah, it's really funny. Yeah. Banjo players and bass players, oftentimes I find bass players pick up the banjo and they're great at it, and banjo
Oh
players
well.
love to play bass too. It's really funny.
That's
So,
amazing.
so anyway, the classic style banjo is a newer development in the middle of the 1800s, and people started playing more like
Hey,
guitar, like classical guitar. So finger picking, like, you know. So the example I give is the old style of playing would be like this. And the newer style,
the difference is basically the way that you pick the string
Yeah, with the
from
right
up
hand.
or from down, like, yeah,
yeah,
no?
it's kind of, I think of it, and I also need to say, I'm not a scholar. I'm not a historian. I don't have a degree in history or in music for that matter. I just love it, and I'm friends with people who are scholars and historians and musicologists and whatnot. Um, So the way I think of it, and this isn't anything official that I've heard anyone else say, but I think of it like the older style is more like playing a drum, and the newer
Okay.
style is more like playing a guitar. So the old style, so you're kind of beating on the instrument, keeping a steady, consistent rhythm, and then the newer style is more, you can be more elaborate with it.
And it's more fast.
It's
Yeah, it can be. It can
yeah,
be
it has
fast.
more fingers too,
Yeah.
That's it's really interesting. That's
So
amazing.
Eh,
So I was aware of ragtime music when I was a kid because I heard, Scott Joplin's music and stuff, but I didn't know much about where it came from or anything. I knew Scott Joplin was a black man, so I knew that ragtime music was a black people's music, but I didn't know much about where it came from. And I only learned a few years ago. So, well, let me go back. When I started playing classic banjo music, when I first heard it, I thought, oh, that's cute. It's like a banjo version of ragtime.
Yeah, yeah.
But but actually,
no.
ragtime music is a piano version of banjo music. So this is where ragtime comes from, is from um, when when banjo players got their hands on pianos. That's where ragtime music comes from. People were basically playing banjo music on the piano.
Órale.
So ragtime music, one of the features of ragtime music is these syncopations and polyrhythms. Basically, that's the African element, and that's ancient, thousands of years old. African music. not to say it's one kind of music. Africa is a huge continent. There's many, many different cultures and different kinds of music there. But you can find a lot of polyrhythms in different parts of Africa. So that translated onto the piano through the left hand doing one rhythm and the right hand doing another rhythm. So the left hand is going boom da boom da boom da, and the right hand is going da dee da 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 da, that kind of thing. Um,
It's really like picky, no? It's like like
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, like it, yeah. And I never seen it. Now that you say it, it makes sense.
Oh, you just think it sounds like banjo picking?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
like
And when you make that connection, banjo music comes from Africa originally, so it makes sense that there would be that rhythmic element of the syncopation and that complexity rhythmically going on
wow,
there. Yeah,
super interesting. I never knew that. It makes
yeah.
sense. It makes a lot of sense in the way the music sounds. You
If
know,
you want,
like
I could play an example
Yeah,
for you
yeah,
of some
yeah,
ragtime
please.
music. Okay,
Can,
let's
so
can
make
we
a phone
go to
call here.
the
yeah, let's do the call. I'm gonna pause this actually.
Okay,
Okay,
can you hear?
yes, we're both here. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna play the most famous piece of ragtime music that maybe your listeners have heard before. I think people all over the world have heard this piece. It was written by Scott Joplin, who is the most famous ragtime composer. Um, this was the first piece of ragtime music that became really, really popular, really well known. It was published in 1899, and it's called the Maple Leaf Rag. Okay. All right, so that's just me playing solo, but really I wouldn't perform it solo if I could play with someone else who's playing the
Like
counter
the
rhythm.
bass.
That would be better. So you can find me with my band playing that on YouTube, or you can go on Bandcamp or on my website and you can download the audio for free. That's aaronjonahlewis.bandcamp.com or aaronjonahlewis.com. And you can,
We're gonna put the names.
yeah, I'll send you those links after this. And
I have
yeah,
a
you can kind of hear, you can even with just me playing, you can hear a little bit of those polyrhythms. And also the harmonies, it's kind of this fusion of, it's simplistic to say this, but African rhythms and European harmonies. Um,
yeah, yeah. That's the idea, but for me, it's a little bit like I never thought it like it was coming from a banjo, but now that I see you playing it, it's really clear that the the digits of the fingers are the ones that make the music, and now I understand why like the melodies are like
The way they are.
yeah, yeah, like
And
yeah,
because they come from
yeah,
the
right, right. So
affination
when you
of the
have,
strings of the banjo,
yeah,
and
it,
when you jump from something like boom,
yes,
then you go
you
down.
know, so Scott Joplin, it's very likely that Scott Joplin played the banjo. We know that both of his parents played the banjo in this
Really?
style. So when you think about, you have three fingers and you go one, two, three, 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 one, two, three,
Yeah,
one, two,
that's
three.
the right hand playing like tiki 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 like
It's
sticking,
very
right?
natural.
Sticking the
Yeah.
string.
Yeah, it lends itself naturally to that kind of music.
Man,
Uh,
it's mind blowing. I never thought it like this, and now that I see you
it's
playing it, it's like, man, it comes from there.
no,
yeah,
especially if you've heard the Maple Leaf Rag on the piano, and you're used to that version. It's great to hear on the banjo too.
I should say the
Yeah,
Maple Leaf Rag wasn't written for the banjo. Many banjo players over the years have played it, but I made my own arrangement of it in the key of A flat that Scott Joplin wrote the piece in. So that's my own original arrangement. Uh, but when Scott Joplin wrote it, I think, and I'm not, this isn't fact, this is opinion. I think Scott Joplin, at the time that he was writing, early 20th, late 19th century, he was trying to move away from the banjo. Um, he was interested in creating a more refined kind of music, an
yeah,
elevated, he wanted to elevate Black culture and Black
yeah.
music.
Like make it for piano and make it more like
Right. The piano was kind of a symbol of middle class decency, and the banjo at the time was more associated with minstrel shows. And minstrel shows, I don't know if you're
Oh,
familiar with this.
yeah, I know, but I think we should discuss minstrel show. That's yeah.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in minstrelsy, but minstrel shows are really important to know about at least a little bit because they form a very big part of the foundation of popular culture in the US and so kind of worldwide.
yeah, the
Um,
blues, no, like rock and roll.
Mm,
And
blues isn't totally unrelated, but minstrel shows have kind of persisted in a more underground or more disguised kind of way because at heart, minstrel shows were very racist, very openly, very blatantly racist. And they used the banjo as a symbol of plantation life to kind of represent a certain stereotype of Black people that was very harmful. So, since that time, a lot of people wanted to move away from the banjo because it had those associations. It was like not just uncomfortable, but harmful. And so it's important, you know, for me, it would be much easier to say, oh, let's forget about all that uncomfortable stuff in the past. Let's just have fun and do what's neat and interesting now. But I think it's much more helpful, even though it's not as comfortable or easy, to open up that book and look at what's written there, what happened in the past, and how is it still happening now. So minstrel shows briefly were a revolutionary form of entertainment in the early 19th century that developed, um, totally changed the face of popular entertainment from, if you could imagine, like opera and Shakespeare, which is all wonderful, but if you didn't have great performers doing it, it could be pretty dreary. Um, and so minstrel shows were a new format of entertainment, kind of like cartoons. It was faster paced variety shows with singing, dancing, comedy, musical acts, um, and storytelling. And so it was very, very popular all over the United States. And this is also how the banjo made its way overseas to England, because the minstrel shows were so popular. Minstrel troops traveled over to England and played for the Queen, and everyone was so enthralled that they started playing the banjo. But I
Wow.
mean, off the topic, what is a minstrel show? What was a minstrel show?
So that's the way that it goes to England, and from England it goes to Ireland.
I think it got to Ireland. It's possible. I can't say that it didn't happen that way, but I think that the Irish banjo, the four-string Irish banjo, that's a separate thread that developed later on, kind of with jazz music, more like in the
Oh,
late teens and
Wow.
20s of the 20th century. So that
Okay.
it's like a separate thread of banjo history.
Okay.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Man, that's
Yeah,
fucking interesting. That's very
yeah.
beautiful.
So, so a minstrel show consisted of usually a small group of white men who would paint their faces black and portray black people in a
Yeah,
really harmful
fucking
way. They
awful.
would portray them
Yeah,
as
yeah, that's the
bad
black
people,
one.
as stupid people, and tell jokes. That was basically the whole format of the not the format, the whole premise of a minstrel show was that you're going to see white people making fun of black people
With
publicly
banjos.
with banjos, with
That's
tambourines. Maybe they'd have other instruments. Maybe they'd have fiddle or guitar,
Wow.
and
That's
and it
fucking
was
interesting.
really,
I mean,
really
it's
popular.
sad, but it's fucking interesting.
Yes, and and towards the end of the 19th century, it kind of died out, but it didn't completely stop. So some of these sort of stereotypes persisted. The format of the variety show continued from the minstrel show into vaudeville and Broadway. Um, and then, later on in the 20th century, we have television. And then obviously now we have internet. You open up any social media app and they want you to look at videos that are like 5 seconds to 1 minute long, and everything's really short and fast paced. So in that way, it's part of that same trend, but also this, you see it in reality TV, where you have people portraying particular stereotypes and these roles of like, oh, this is the smart person who's really clever and knows everything, and this is the dumb person who's from the country, or whatever else. It's not going to be black and white, but it'll still be these kind of dynamics, and that's where comedy comes from in a lot of these situations. I'm not saying you're a bad person if you enjoy it. It's similar to the banjo. It has these roots that's good to know about.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
the
yeah.
history. It's just
It's
history.
it's wonderful to enjoy it, but it's also good to know about where does it come from, and you know, so
It's
so
really
people were
interesting, man.
people were wanting to get away from the banjo, people like Scott Joplin. But I should also say, ragtime music isn't, Scott Joplin is one composer of ragtime music, but there were hundreds of other composers, and they had different backgrounds, different stories. Some people were like Scott Joplin and wanted to elevate their music and create something that was, you know, comparable to European art music, to really make it something worthy of a concert stage, of a symphony hall. But then there were lots of other composers who were like, this is party music, this is dance music. They play it in the bar rooms and they play it in the sporting houses. And that's valid too. It's not only one thing. Um,
And that music is the one that goes to the south of USA.
Ragtime music was a national phenomenon and it spread to other countries as well. Um, so the the Southern music is another thread that
Okay,
they're
okay.
all interwoven. But
Okay, okay, okay. Sorry, sorry. I'm
no,
just
no, I love that you're asking. It's good questions. So ragtime music was sort of the beginning of popular music in the United States, in the sense of a commercial music, a music that people were writing in order to make money. It wasn't the first time in history that people did that. You know, people like Stephen Foster he was a very popular songwriter, wrote many, many songs, and you know, minstrel composers would have their pieces published. And but ragtime was taking it to another level, um, to where it was like a craze. Like people all across the country were excited about playing ragtime music, writing ragtime music, publishing ragtime music, and there was a commercial motivation behind this as well. Um, so this one of the things I like to say about ragtime is it represents the peak of popular culture just before recording technology became more widely available. And when that happened, it changed the way people engaged with music very drastically. I'm not saying for better or worse, but it's very, very different. If you can imagine living in a world without recorded music, the only way you're able to hear music is if you play it or if you're around someone who's playing music. So in
yeah,
those days, and when I say those days, I mean all of human history, hundreds of thousands of years, up
yeah,
until about 100 years ago, the only way you'd have music is if you were playing music or being around someone. So pretty much everyone could read music or at least sing or play an instrument. And that's what people did for entertainment. They would hang out at home or go to each other's houses and play music together. And they would go buy the sheet music for the popular tunes. They would hear somebody play something and say, "Oh, I want to learn that." And maybe they learn it by ear, but if they wanted to get the notes, they go to the shop and buy the music. And when a piece like the Maple Leaf Rag sells a million copies, it's a million copies
it's
of sheet
amazing.
music, not of records or tapes or CDs. And so when we have recordings come into the picture, it changes the way people engage with music. So instead of learning to play a piece, buying the sheet music and learning to play it, they say, "Oh, I'll just buy the record and it'll play itself, so I can do something
Yeah,
else."
fucking crazy.
Yeah, and in many ways, I'm not going to go into great detail, but you can imagine it wasn't a sudden change. It wasn't suddenly people stopped playing instruments, but over the course of the generations, it changed to, people still, obviously, we all still play instruments and we love to make music, um, but it's not as common as it used to be. So ragtime kind of provides a window into that world of, when I'm playing music, when I'm playing ragtime music, I'm doing the same thing that my
Like,
cultural ancestors were doing 100 years ago.
like in which period or which like time?
Yeah, so ragtime, the Maple Leaf Rag was published in 1899. Ragtime music was hugely popular for the first decade or two of the 20th century, really like
Wow,
1895 till I'd say
like
1920 or
the
so,
very
1925.
beginning.
But people were still writing ragtime music, and they still are now. It's just not at the same level, not the same scale.
Okay, it's
So,
amazing. Like
yeah,
we have a another guest another time, and we exactly talk about this, like the way people used to hear music in those times, where only if you play it, or you go to church, or you go to the
Yeah, yeah.
every town, or you go to
Yeah.
the, like the circus, or
But no,
the
but
moments when you hear music, because
buying a million copies of the Maple Leaf Rag is a million people
a million people, it's fucking
trying to.
amazing.
I don't know if
A million
I,
people, it's fucking
I don't know
crazy.
if being able to do it, but at least trying to play through it, I guess.
You know, like that's fucking crazy. Like, hey, we're gonna make a party in my house tonight. I have some music new. I can play music, and people come and I play the piano and we dance. Like
Exactly.
fucking crazy. Like usually nobody have a fucking piano, so I'm gonna play the fucking banjo.
Yeah. Yeah. This. So when I was much younger, when I started playing music, I had lessons and I played classical music, Western European classical music, and it wasn't the kind of fun that I have with music now. It was very different. And later on, when I was
It's
when
fucking
I was
different.
in my I guess 18 years old and beyond, like in my 20s, I started learning about old time music and bluegrass and going to parties where we play instruments and dance and hang out. And I was like, what is this? This is the joy of life. This is the best thing ever. I didn't know about this when I was growing up. I wish I did. But this
And
is
then
what
it was
people have always
like
done.
that, no?
Yeah, it's so great. So yeah, that's part of my message is like, hey, we, this is an old thing people have always done, and it's not as popular anymore, but we can still do it. And I think it's the future too, because I don't know. I'm not trying to say popular culture now is good or bad or anything like that, but I do think that people are craving more sense of connection with each other. Like we've all been using social media now for 10 years, 20 years. I don't know. It's been a long time. And in some ways it does connect us that is really valuable, but in other ways it also makes us feel more separate from each other. And we have all this distance between us. I mean, we all live in separate houses when in the past as humans we all lived in bigger groups together. And again, I'm not saying good or bad. It's because it's nice to have your space sometimes, but we also get to feeling lonely too more often. And I think people finding ways to connect with each other in a way that's really fun, and there's an element of learning, there's an element of growth, there's a little bit of a challenge learning to play music. Um, but it's also very fulfilling and very exciting, very rewarding, very fun to just hang out with people, play music, even if you're bad at it. You can stomp your feet, clap your hands, and shout. And it's really it's a timeless kind of fun. It feels like really
Yeah, it's amazing.
connecting. It's like I'm connected with all of humanity. I'm connecting with what it means to be human when I do this.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I guess some of my best memories are playing with people, playing music. It's yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I
Yes.
don't know,
it's
every
not
time I
unique
go
to
to a party,
yeah.
the the interesting part of the party in the end is play some music. Like,
Yeah,
man, have you
yeah.
heard
It's
this?
not unique to
This is fucking
ragtime music
amazing.
or folk music. It's just any kind of music. You get to play with each other and you know connect in that universal language kind of way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
one perspective that might be worth considering is before the recording industry was around, before recording music, before there was a whole industry around it, there were only really two kinds of music. There was art music, in other words, wealthy people music, educated, you have to
it's
have a
selling
music
music, no?
education to be able to play it and to appreciate it. Um, and then there was folk music or entertainment music, popular music, not popular people, popular music.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
this
yeah.
wasn't black and white. This was there was a lot of crossover. So folk music could get made into art music, and art music could become folk music. There was a lot of back and forth. So a piece like the Maple Leaf Rag could have been played in a concert hall for a seated audience. It also could have been played in a dance hall, you know? So yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, some of these composers were much more interested, like for example, U.B. Blake is a really well-known ragtime composer and player. He lived to be over 100 years old. So he was around at the same time as Scott Joplin, but Scott Joplin died very young, and U.B. Blake lived until the first ragtime revival in the 1970s. He was around for that. You can see videos of him
Wow,
playing on,
that's amazing.
Carnegie Hall and whatnot. Um, so, and U.B. Blake, he said he wasn't that interested in writing down his pieces. He was more interested in playing and improvising, and he wrote a lot of great music, and some of it has been
Like
published.
playing folk.
Right, right. Yeah, I could play a piece for you that
Yeah,
U.B.
yeah, yeah,
Blake.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. Let me pause this and let's play. You'll be playing. What's the name of this?
The piece is called "Rag in the Scale."
Okay. Oh, great.
All right.
Okay, I think it's working. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so when I found this piece, it was attributed to a white composer named Edward Claypool, and I thought that's who wrote it because that was the name on the piece of sheet music. But I found out from reading U.B. Blake's autobiography that he and another ragtime player named Huey Wolford had written it sort of collaboratively 10 years earlier. And the story was that the two of them, back in the early 1900s, they were in Baltimore, a city in the eastern U.S., and they were sort of joking around with each other, and UB said to Huey, like, "Oh man, you'd play anything in ragtime, wouldn't you?" And Huey says, "Yeah." He said, "You even play the scales in ragtime." He just starts playing scales in ragtime, and then he starts playing this piece, starts making it up, and then UB Blake kind of added some modulations and some ornamentations to it, and they showed it to him, and they were playing this piece and they were loving it. And then this composer Claypool heard them playing it, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to write that down and copyright it," which is pure appropriation, because that's very common practice. That's what people were doing in those days. People still do it today. Take other people's ideas and exploit them for profit. And UB Blake said, "I never thought to copyright it or anything. I would have felt foolish trying to copyright the scale." But here's "Rag in the Scale" by U.B. Blake and Huey Wolford. And I know you guys are musicians, and a lot of your listeners are musicians, or at least music lovers, so you know what a scale is, So you'll hear a lot of scales in this piece. Ascending scales, descending scales, fast and slow. So anyway, here it is, "Rag in the Scale." This is another one you can find videos of me playing with my band on YouTube. But here it is. I'll finally play it. "Rag in the Scale."
Well, you play amazing. That was beautiful. That was, yeah, it was a scale.
It was a lot of
Yeah,
skills.
it's
Yeah.
just
Some
scale.
scales.
Yeah, and that's
Fucking
another one that
amazing.
that was not written for the banjo, but it has banjo origins, like I talked about earlier. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should play something that was written for the banjo,
Oh
so you
yeah,
can.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
both this was written for piano too.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah.
And
It's
I'm gonna lie you, it sounds so well made for banjo. I don't
oh,
know
thank
why
you.
you say it wasn't made for banjo, but it was for banjo made, like like three fingers, and change two fingers, change two
Yeah.
fingers.
Well, I kind of made my own version of that, but I mostly got the arrangement from Fred Van Epps, who is a very accomplished banjo player from that
Ah,
same
so
time
that's why
period.
it's so dramatic.
Yeah, he made it work basically.
Okay, okay, because I was a little bit like, so why it was so idiomatic, it was not made
It's
for.
very banjo-y. Yeah. But when I first found that piece, it was being played on the fiddle by Joe Venuti. So I'm also a fiddle player. My whole life I've played fiddle.
Wow,
I've only been
that's so
playing banjo
weird. Like
since.
like in Mexico, that's fucking weird.
Why?
Yeah.
Nobody plays fiddle in Mexico.
Oh, I
Yeah.
should go to
Yeah,
Mexico
they
then.
do.
No, it's a violin, no? Like,
Yeah, it's violin. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
violin, same
but it's
instrument.
not a violin,
Right. It's a different
or is
style.
it?
well, there was a definition that said that fiddle it's the violin you take to a bar that you don't mind dropping a beer on it. That's the difference than a beer and a fiddle and a violin. That you can
Yes,
drop a beer, you can spill a beer on your fiddle, but not on your violin.
exactly. Yeah, that's
That's the only difference. So
that's the difference.
yeah. I mean, I would say it's the difference between, like I was talking about, there's only two kinds of music. There's art music and folk music.
that's the
Violin is for
difference.
art music and fiddle is for folk music. Fiddle is for dancing. So
Yeah.
Fucking
I was a
marvelous.
violin player when I was a kid, and then when I got into playing bluegrass, old time, and blues and country and jazz and everything, and then I became a fiddle player. So I found a recording of Joe Venuti playing this piece, and it blew my mind. So I learned to play it on the fiddle, and then I found a banjo version of it. I was like, "What is this?" And it was older. I was like, "What?" So it was Fred Van Epps playing that piece on the banjo, and I was like, "What is this about?" And I wanted to learn it, so I started learning Fred Van Epps' version, and I ended up doing it my own way, little bit different, but it
Nice.
it all comes from the piano playing of Huey Wolford and UB Blake.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's a interesting music for instrumental musicians.
Yeah, yeah, it is it's kind of nerdy.
It's nerdy, but I love it. It was really interesting.
Yeah,
I
I
really
don't
like it.
expect everyone in the world to be super interested in this kind of music, but I also think that anyone who hears it will enjoy it. I think, maybe they're not going to get obsessed with it like I am, but I think everyone who hears it will say, "Oh, this is nice. I can tap my foot to it. I can dance to it. It's pleasant." See, to me, the best music satisfies three criteria. One, you can listen to it and enjoy it. Two, you can dance to it. And three, you can ignore it. It's possible. It's possible to have a conversation. There's some music that I think is really, really good music, but I can't do anything else if that music is on.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I can't read a
That's a
book.
good criteria.
That's just my opinion. That's what I think. The best music, it's like you can listen to it, you can dance to it, and you can also ignore it and just have it play.
Nice.
I love it.
Not
Yeah.
I love
demanding.
it.
It's not like, hey, I'm so good, you have to listen to me. It's like, no, I'm good. I'm just over here doing my thing.
It's very
But I have an idea. Sorry, I'm gonna to introduce myself. I have a friend that is making like tea, Chinese tea in Mexico,
okay.
and I haven't like realized how weird it is. There is a person making and giving and exchanging tea from China to Mexico because it's not a normal thing in Mexico. It's really weird. I think it's the only person that gives like a good Chinese tea. I'm making this idea because the thing that you are doing for me is like my friend that is doing this Chinese tea. Nobody does it. Nobody do it. But
Right.
when somebody do it, it's amazing. For people like me that enjoys Chinese tea, and now I enjoy
Banjo music.
your banjo and your history that you're giving us. It's amazing because nobody is gonna give that. You know, you are the only one that is doing it. So
Yeah.
it's really amazing how my friend as you are pioneers in this kind of things in the way that you are doing it, you know, in the way that you are having it with all this history and all this knowledge and really thank you because it's amazing and for me it's really amazing, you know, like
Yeah. Well,
I'm
thank
just a
you
guy
for that.
that
Yeah.
have
I
pleasure from it, but person
yeah.
from you, it's a really hard work.
It takes a lot of privilege to be able to spend so much time doing something that doesn't make a lot of money. You
Yeah.
know,
It's amazing.
it's like a hobby for me, but I'm also so passionate about it that I will put myself out there, release recordings. You can find my Ragtime Banjo Revive. I've only released 2 tracks so far, but I have like 30 more that I'm going to be releasing over the years. And I put them out on the digital, you can find them on anywhere you stream music. Um, and going out and performing and everything. I'm really passionate about sharing this with people. Um, yeah, and I don't really make a living doing it. I make a living playing other kinds of music and teaching, and I love doing that as well. But this is kind of my passion because, like you said, not there's not really anyone else doing it, and I love an
Oh,
underdog. I just love to
Yeah.
find. You know,
pioneer, and it's amazing.
I wasn't very interested in history when I started playing this old music. I just loved the party aspect of it. I'm getting together with people, I'm meeting people, we're playing tunes until 4 in the morning. It's so much fun. Even till the sun comes up, we're just playing and playing and playing. And then the old guys would say, "Well, this tune comes from so and so. This comes from Ed Haley from West Virginia." I'd tell you the story, and I'm like, "I don't care. Let's play another tune." But but gradually, over the years, through meeting people, I did start to become more interested in the history, and now I'm pretty obsessed with it. And I think it's
Now you're the old guy saying this comes from on
yeah,
the place, you
yeah,
Yeah.
know.
yeah. I see the
Beautiful.
value in it.
And and what happens next? No, no, you were going to play uh something
Sorry,
made for
yeah.
the banjo. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah,
I
yeah, sure.
interrupt. I interrupt. Sorry.
No, you're good. So maybe I'll play a piece for you that was not it was written by a white composer and it's not a ragtime piece. So this will give you
Okay.
an idea of there's a big diversity of there's a lot of different kinds of music people played on the banjo. There was waltzes and marches and mazurkas and polkas and tangos and everything went through the banjo. Um, but I'll play a piece for you uh, by an American composer, so you get a sense for what was going on in popular music around the same time that ragtime emerged. And you'll hear how different it is. It's a different style. It's I sometimes tell people classic banjo is the whitest kind of banjo music. And
Okay.
it really was like people were getting away from the minstrel show thing, and they wanted to remove the association of the banjo with black people. There were even people writing articles saying that white people invented the banjo, which is not true at all, but they were really wanting to sell banjos
I
because
thought so.
it was such a popular kind of music at the time that everyone wanted to play it. So they wanted to sell banjos to people. And you know, this music also was like pretty far removed from its African roots. Uh, so yeah, here
That was my next question. How did these predominantly black instruments become what you said at the beginning of the talk? You said, well, now you think it's a hillbilly white thing. How did that happen? That was actually my next
yeah,
question.
and I'm not gonna say it was a natural process. It was a product of capitalism and appropriation. It's people looking at trends in popular culture and saying, okay, wait, how can we make more money off of this? So they make more money
Popular
off
music.
of it. Yeah, by separating it from its roots and making up stories about say so basically with the banjo, the people who were making banjos, they found ways. Okay, let me go back. In the early days, pre 19th century, or even in the early 19th century, if you were a banjo player, you were also a banjo maker. You had to make your
Oh,
own
Okay.
banjo if you were going to play the banjo.
Okay, okay, okay,
But
okay,
starting
okay.
in the 19th century, you started to have banjo makers because minstrel shows were so popular. People
Was
would
becoming popular, of course. Yeah, like
maybe a
selling.
banjo player from a minstrel show wants to just buy a banjo, doesn't have time to make one. Or maybe other people want to learn to play the banjo because they saw someone playing one. So banjo makers start making banjos. And then around the middle of the 19th century, they start to make lots of banjos. They start to find ways to make them more like in a factory so they can make a lot more of them. It's not just one at a time. You can make 100 banjos at a time. So they want to sell more banjos. And how do they sell banjos? Advertising. And who do they advertise to? The target audience they were targeting was white middle class women because they thought if we can get this to be accepted by white middle class women, then it'll be acceptable to everybody. Basically,
okay.
if white middle class women say it's okay, then it's okay for middle class men. It's okay for white people, black people, rich people, poor people, men and women.
Everybody's gonna like it.
Everyone can do it. You
That's
know,
amazing. That's like
that was
really great idea.
that was what they were thinking. Yeah. So the mind of an advertiser,
Oh yeah.
I don't think that way, and I sometimes wish I did because I'm not very good at business.
No, it fucking works. It's a really
Well,
fucking good idea.
that's a
Yeah.
madman kind of thing. Like,
It's a matter thing to do, but it's really good. It
Yeah.
works.
So and
It's real.
this is the process that we call whitewashing.
it's
When
the
you
Totally.
same. That's Elvis
Totally.
Presley thing
yeah,
again. The
you
yeah,
take culture or
yeah,
music or ideas from other people who aren't white, and then you change them to make it more white,
what? Yeah.
to, to
It's really
kind of
interesting
remove some of the
the things that
the
you're giving
elements
us.
that make it to me more interesting, more danceable, more fun. But to
More
they want to
history.
make it more watered down, make it more white,
Like Al Johnson kind of thing. Yeah.
more
Yeah.
safer, make it more safe, less risky, more palatable,
And
more more
I have a
plain.
question. The way to play it,
Okay, I'll go ahead and get into something a little more complicated because
Okay.
I interesting.
the
The
technique
story that
that
I was told, and again, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not a scholar. I haven't done all the research. This is just where I'm at on my journey of learning. So when I got into this classic banjo music, the story that I was told, I should say by white people, was that minstrel banjo players, who again mostly were white people, later on black people were doing minstrel shows too, but these banjo players came in contact with Spanish guitar players, people who played guitar in this finger style
Yeah.
of playing. And they said, "Oh, maybe I can do that on the banjo." And they started doing that on the banjo. And the banjo originally didn't have frets, but around this time period, people started putting frets on the banjo and they could do more complicated things, play more sophisticated music. And so, anyway, that's the story I was told. But then I was doing some other research and I found out that there are traditional African ways of playing stringed instruments that are just the same thing, a
Oh,
fingerstyle
okay.
picking. So originally, I was hearing the story from white people that it was sort of a white innovation to make the music more like this, to make it more a different sound, right? To make it more move it away from the minstrel style of playing. Um,
Okay.
And that might be true. It probably is true, but maybe not the only thing that's true because I think it's possible, and again, I can't prove this. I think it's also possible that black people were playing in this style as well, maybe
Okay.
the whole time. Um, but all we have to go on are the written records that we have, and we have banjo music that was published in the 19th century. And before it was written for fingerstyle, it was written for stroke style, which is the same as minstrel style that I was showing earlier. But we don't know,
Yeah.
this was all white people publishing this stuff, so we don't
Yeah, like
know. It's just a really exciting and fascinating process. When you start getting into historical research, people say, "Oh, everything's on the internet now." That's not true. You
mhm.
find everything that's on the internet and you say, "Okay, that's what's on the internet." And then you talk to people, especially older people, and you get their stories and they're like, "Well, that's not on the internet." And then you read some books that aren't on the internet, you find some old recordings that aren't on the internet. You find all this stuff you didn't know anything about. And then you reach the limit of what's on the internet and you start having to find things out on your own. That's very exciting, and it's not certain. It's we enter this area of, oh, I don't actually know if this is true, and it's actually there's no way to know for sure what what black people were doing with the banjo um in the 1800s. There's some black people who were composers and had their pieces published, like Horace Weston, for example, and there's documentation of white people writing down what black people did, but that's all very biased, and there's not a lot of it. We don't have a
Okay.
lot of information. So to some extent, we use our imagination and we say, well, I think based on what I know that this could have happened, but I don't know for sure. It's also possible that it didn't happen. Maybe something totally different was going on. I don't really know, but
I
you
love the
look
idea.
at
Yeah, I
the
love the idea.
information you have available and you draw conclusions or theories. You say, well, maybe this is what happened. So it's very exciting, very interesting. It takes some creativity. It's like a little bit of puzzle solving.
It's
And
beautiful,
it's
and
not
people
well,
like you are the only ones that have the information to make this kind of ideas.
yeah, it's really fun. I love
Because
it.
nobody else have this kind of knowledge, and because
Yeah,
nobody
I
else
mean,
make
I
this kind of studies.
I get to become friends with people all over the world who very few people have these interests, but we find each other and we say, "Oh, did you read this paper? Did you read that book? Did you hear that recording? Did you know this story?" And we trade information and we say, "Well, I think maybe this." And they say, "No, that's not what happened. I think this." And you say, "Oh, are you sure? Because this." And
Okay,
yeah,
okay, okay. So nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
yeah, these
it's
discussions,
it's
it's
a
very exciting.
community thing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
You
want
know,
to just put a word out in case anyone's looking for a resource to learn more about early banjo history. There's a book by Christina Gaddy called Well of Souls that came out just a couple years
Okay.
ago. And her partner, Pete Ross, is a fantastic banjo builder in Baltimore. And I I was thinking of them because, well, they've both done all of this research around banjo stuff. They know a lot more than I do. And I was having this discussion with Pete about, you know, could the finger style of banjo playing have African roots? And he has his opinions based on his knowledge, which is again much broader and deeper than mine. But I had my own ideas, and so I was talking with him about it. So that's an example of a small number of us having very
Yeah,
specialized
yeah.
ideas and having
That's
conversations
amazing.
around it.
It's
That's
amazing.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
the
shall
nether
we
community is the most important of
should we
science.
absolutely.
hear the piece,
Yeah,
the one that was like in a
Yeah,
it's a classical banjo style?
yeah.
Okay, let me mute this.
Okay. So this is just an example of a non-ragtime kind of banjo piece. I think it's from 1895 by a composer from Indiana named Park Hunter, and it's called "Fun on the Wabash." This is really to give you a contrast, something different from ragtime, but it's a lovely piece. Okay, here's "Fun on the Wabash" by Park Hunter. Oh wait, you know what? I'm going to tune for a second. Okay. Okay. Here it is. Fun on the Wabash by Park Hunter.
That's so great. That's nice. Yeah, and it's very different. It's very, very
Yeah,
different. Uh,
yeah. It's just really cool to read music and learn stuff that's never been recorded.
that's
Um,
fucking beautiful. Huh?
and to hear basically what we have access to now, the low-hanging fruit of popular music or what's been recorded, it's all the most popular stuff, and it kind of leaves out anything that was on the fringe, or even stuff that was really popular. If you think about like Western European classical music, we know a handful of composers, right? We know
Yeah.
Mozart, we know Bach and Haydn and Beethoven, and we could name a handful. But there were hundreds of people writing music that was just as good, maybe even better than some of that stuff. It's just for whatever reason, history's chosen to say, okay, Mozart, that's classical music, and everything else you don't need to know about it.
I'm
And
sure
then
because he was
you
a
start
cute guy.
you start digging into it, like Ragtime, for example. Scott Joplin, that's Ragtime. You don't need to know anything else. It's funny if you think about what 50 or 100 years from now, people are going to say rock and roll. Um, you know, uh, are they going to remember Jimi Hendrix? Are they going to remember Led Zeppelin or the Beatles or the Rolling Stones? Or like, there's going to be one artist that everyone's like, oh yeah, that was rock and Elvis Presley, that's rock and roll, and then nobody knows about
Yeah.
anyone else.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
We've had the discussion about the canon, what goes in the canon, what doesn't, and yeah, I
The canon
guess it
is
happens
canon.
to other.
Very
It
first.
happens to other kind of music too, I guess. Like
Yeah. So you start reading stuff that you've never heard anyone else play, and you're finding these musical ideas that you've never found anywhere else. And it's fascinating. It's like, whoa, this was popular music in 1895. I had no idea. They're
And
doing
that's
some
what
cool
what
stuff.
what you were saying. Like yeah, there was a elegant music of banjo, and then there was a popular music of banjo, and suppose it always has been like that. I don't know, like yeah.
Well, no, I don't think it was always like that. I think that the art music for banjo was created as part of that process of whitewashing, in order to market the banjo specifically to middle class white women, and therefore to sell it to everybody. Um, and it worked. But prior to that, the banjo was music of the people. Banjo music, well, there was minstrel music, which was also entertainment music, music for the people. But prior to that, I mean, there are some written accounts, but we have to use our imaginations too. Where did the banjo exist? Mainly in plantation settings, at least uh, before emancipation, but before the end of slavery, uh, at least the legal end of slavery. Slavery in the U.S. persists in the prison system and also in form of wage slavery, but that's another story. Um, but yeah, who was
No,
playing
but
the
it's
banjo?
interesting.
Black people were playing the banjo, and they weren't doing a lot of concert hall events. They didn't typically, at least in the South, they didn't have their freedom, so they were playing for their own enjoyment, for their you know, to have their own culture, to entertain themselves, to celebrate together, to grieve together, to have dances. This again, I don't have I don't have proof for this, but this is we do know that white people weren't playing the banjo very much until the 19th century. So it was a black people's instrument, and most black people in the US were enslaved. Um, uh, uh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But it's yeah.
So yeah, the art
So
music on the banjo, yeah, that didn't come until later on.
and I think it has never. I don't know. I have never heard, for example, of a concert for orchestra and banjo. There should be one. At this point, somebody has written one, I'm sure. And somebody's going to say, hey, there's some. I don't know if somebody has elevated the banjo to that level, like
You can see
put
some
it in the
videos of
orchestra, but it
you
would
can
be amazing.
see some videos of me playing the banjo with an orchestra
Oh, yeah?
on the ragtimebanjo.com website.
You play with an orchestra there? You was on it. That's amazing. Hey,
I'm not sure.
I'm sure it
I'm gonna
happens,
go to
but
your.
I
I'm
haven't
gonna
seen
to
it.
your link.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I want to have it happen more because it's really fun, and it's just it's unique. like Pablo said, it's like Chinese tea in Mexico. It's no one else is doing it.
No one else is it. It really, for people that wants to get like in this kind of things, is fucking amazing. So really, thank you for this kind of work because nobody else is do it, and I don't know. When Enrique told me about you, and he said like it's gonna come an amazing guy, and he talks about history, and he plays amazing, and it's gonna be a great guest, and I get excited, like this is gonna be a fucking amazing guest, like, because it's not normal. Like talk about history of banjo. We have talked about history of violin. We have talked
No.
about the history of violin.
Never.
Nah, come on, we have to talk about history of
No,
violin.
we're saving that. We're saving that someday.
No,
Maybe.
we haven't.
Never. No,
Never.
never,
No,
never. But it's okay.
violin not.
No.
I want to learn
Oh
more
my
about the history of
gosh.
violin and
Really?
Mexican music because I play some Mexican fiddle music,
Oh
but
yeah.
you know, my neighbors aren't very fond of it. It's because it's old fashioned. It's from 100 years ago
The
that
son Huasteco kind of thing. That's
yeah,
great. That's great Mexican fiddle music. The son
it's
Huasteco.
so
They
good.
have the son. I personally don't like mariachi very much, but
Es
the
verdad.
the the,
Perdón,
the,
perdón.
the
Es verdad. We haven't talked about violin. Never.
no, never. But the fiddle music in Mexico, there's son. That's where mariachi comes from, and there's from different regions. It's Veracruz is the son jarocho. There's the son Huasteco from the middle of the country, San Luis Potosí, around that area, and there's the son Ismeño from Oaxaca. But the one that has the fiddle, it's the son Huasteco, and I think there's amazing fiddle music in son Huasteco, particularly.
La
I
sierra,
think,
¿no?
yeah, yeah. That's when you said that there's no fiddle in Mexico. There is, and it's quite amazing. The
La sierra is like
Huastecos.
in the high place of the mountain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a mountain music in Mexico. It's the son
Mountain
Huasteco.
music.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
amazing.
So that's the fiddle you play for with the neighbors?
No, I there's a band that I've played with for since 2012 or 13 called the Corn Potato String Band. And we do a lot of different kinds of fiddle music, mostly from the US, but also some of these Mexican fiddle polkas.
Okay.
Just love it so much. Yeah, you'll have to remind me to send you examples of all these things that I'm talking about because there's too many things.
Oh yeah, please. And when we publish these, we're gonna give everybody the links, and for sure. How many bands are you playing at right now?
Oh, not a lot. I'm slowing down. So when I was younger, I there was a period when I lived in Virginia, I was playing with 10 different bands regularly.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
but now my current projects, I play solo, and I have my ragtime trio. It's called Aaron Jonah Lewis's Ragtime Banjo Revival Trio. Um, and those are the main projects. I also work with an Afrofuturist string quartet called White Flowers.
Wow.
Uh, and I think we're getting ready to release our first single pretty soon, but I don't have more information about that right now.
It's
And then
amazing night.
there's the band Corn Potato String Band. We're not very active anymore these days, but I think maybe we will be more in the future. But for 10 years, we toured all over the world and made 4 albums together. And it's really really wonderful music with fiddle and banjo and guitar and steel guitar and singing and um, yeah, I love that band. Um, but yeah, I mean, and then I do pick up gigs. I play jazz sometimes with people. I do classical music. I'm a professional musician, so I do whatever I get paid for. Um, but at this moment in my life, I'm actually uh, getting ready to take a break. I'm gonna take a break for a while. A few months from now, I'm gonna go on.
A break from everything or
Yeah,
just classical?
no, I'm taking a break from everything.
That's amazing.
Sounds healthy. Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I'm not gonna talk to anybody. I'm not gonna go anywhere. I'm not gonna play music or look at my phone or the computer. I'm literally just gonna sit quietly and do nothing for a really long time.
Sounds
We're gonna
great.
try to not to talk to you.
But I'm glad that we caught you before you did that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I was like, well, I hope this podcast doesn't blow me up or anything because I'm not going to be around for any follow-up interviews or
Oh, we're not that popular. Don't worry about it. We have
okay.
we have like
This is the last one.
No, I'll be back. I'm leaving temporarily, but
Oh, it's
but I,
amazing. We're the last one. So please give us the special treat.
yeah, yeah, I will be back though. So, you just send me a message if you want to follow up, and I don't know when, but at some point I'll be back.
Nice.
Let's make a deal. When you have your record out, we
So
make a video with you about your record.
yeah,
What do you
yeah,
think
of
about
course.
that?
Sounds amazing.
Yeah,
First
actually,
percent,
I am
Can we
getting
make a
ready
deal about
to
that?
I'm getting ready to release another single at the end of July.
Okay.
So the Ragtime Banjo Revival recording project I started in 2020, I think, when I released the Mozart of the Banjo album. I wanted to do something more ragtime focused because I always loved that music and I wanted to learn more about it. So I got into this project and it was during COVID. So instead of just like I've done in the past, I would just kind of prepare some material and record it and be done and move it along, move it along, move it along. Instead, I sat on it and I said, okay, so I've learned these pieces. Now, what if I arrange this one for a 10-piece brass band? What if I
Oh,
arrange this one for pipe organ? What if I arrange this for string quartet? So I made all these arrangements for 10 different ensembles and I've been slowly releasing them. And I'm also looking for a record label to work with to release all of them and do it properly. I don't have the money to pay the engineers I worked with or the musicians that I worked with. Everyone's been really kind to let me, pay them later.
You're doing amazing work.
It's
so
such a big project.
that's an
Just
amazing
record.
that's
Your
an
work.
amazing yeah.
So I've released 2 tracks so far, the Maple Leaf Rag and the Frog Legs Rag, and they also have sheet music editions that I made of the banjo arrangements. You can get it in tablature or in sheet music notation, and it's all for free on my website or on Bandcamp.
You're
And
doing a lot of work.
the next one I'm releasing is a different. So those were both recorded with a string band. So I'm playing banjo. There's a guitar player, cello player, ukulele, and piano.
Nice.
And then the next one I'm releasing is surf rock ragtime.
Surf rock track. Oh, that's so
So yeah, this was recorded with a rock band, and I'm playing electric banjo.
I hope you think of us when you want to take it out.
that sounds like an amazing project. I love it. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to. I just need to get the artwork ready, and I want to prepare the sheet music for people to download also. So yeah, if you go on the Bandcamp to download the audio for Maple Leaf Rag or for Froglegs Rag, you can also download the sheet music for free. But what I've done is I've also printed full color 9 by 12, like bigger than you can print at home editions that you can then order from me, and I'll send it to you through the mail. And that you have to pay for. But to just get the music and print it home is free. The audio is free. Suggested donation, whatever. But yeah, that's part of another thing that I'm so sick of people not being able to get access to the music they want because it costs money. I'm not saying no one should need money. Well, I think no one should need money, but in this world, the way things are, you need money. But I want people to I want to remove the barriers. So
Yeah.
if someone wants the music and they can pay for it, then they can pay, and that's great. But if they want the music and they can't pay, they can still have it.
That's
That's
amazing.
that's great. That's
Amazing.
great job, and it's
Love it. I'm not gonna lie, you. I love Pirata stuff because exactly you just make easy to get
Yeah.
information, and the thing that you are willing to give it. If you wanna give, cool.
it's very
If you
generous. It's very nice.
I just want people to have it. I mean, I do need money to have to pay the bills. I have to pay the taxes, but I don't
You know
care
what?
about
I'm
having a
gonna
lot of-
try to pay it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to pay it.
It's more important to me that people have the music than that I have money.
So nice.
That's amazing. That's
Okay,
amazing. That's
Aaron,
music.
do you want people to follow you, something like that, or you rather?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have social media accounts, but I don't use them anymore. So you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. Better is to follow me on YouTube, or on my Patreon, because I do use those more. I
Okay.
post videos on YouTube, and if someone joins my Patreon, you can join for free, or you can also join and become a supporting member, and that's patreon.com/Aaron Jonah Lewis. And the YouTube is free also. I also have a mailing list, and if you go on my website, you can join my mailing list. It's direct communication. If you join my mailing list, you'll get a newsletter from me every now and then with links to my videos and music and stories about what I'm thinking about in my life, books I'm reading, and places I'm playing. I have a lot of gigs this month coming up in July, and then after that, I don't have as much going on. I'm getting ready to take a break, but July is a big month for me.
Nice.
Can you repeat your username of YouTube?
Yeah, it's Aaron Jonah Lewis.
I'm gonna put it in the description of the video anyway, so people can go there. And wow, I don't know, something else. Did we cut it
I just
short,
want- I just
or was there something else in the story?
There's so much more, but I think I covered everything that I know about.
Okay.
I just want to say that it was an amazing show for us. Well, I don't know for you, Enrique, but
Oh,
it
of
was
course it was.
amazing.
I'm very happy with you.
It was amazing. You playing it, you playing music. It was fucking. It was amazing. I love it. It was really, I don't know, heartwarming. I really love the show. Really, thank you. really thank you for
Thanks
coming
for
with
having
us.
me. It's
No,
so
yeah.
great to see
It's
you.
amazing.
It
This
was
is
great
my
having you. Thank you
favorite
so
show
much.
ever.
And
Really, it's amazing. This.
Thank you. We'll keep on rocking in the free
Love it.
world.
shows for sure. Okay.
Do you
That's
want to
it.
give an advice? We usually, when we end the show, we give like an
Some
advice.
piece of advice in general doesn't have to do with music. Just
It doesn't have to do with anything. Just an advice.
random piece of advice.
Don't anything.
Um,
I don't know. Don't kill. Don't
I
kill.
don't, we don't want to put you on the spot.
You can say don't fall. You know, it's an advice. You can say anything.
yeah. Be good to each other.
That's fucking great.
Nice.
Oh no, I didn't say be excellent to each other.
That's Bill and Ted's.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's from Bill and Ted. That's amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try it.
You know what?
Every
You know what,
day.
actually, what I like to say, if I have a chance, is use your imagination. You don't get stuck in this is the way things have to be. This is the way things are right now. It's not the way they've always been, and things are going to change. And in order to create change, to make change that we want to see in the world, we have to use our imagination and don't just let other people tell us what it is, what has to be. You know, you can dream. I can imagine a world where people are free. I can imagine a world where there's no more poverty. I can imagine a world where there's no more hunger. It's possible. Don't let people tell you it's not possible. Whatever you want to dream of for the whole world or just for yourself. I dream I'm going to be a better guitar player. I dream I'm going to learn to speak Spanish. It's possible. It's all
Man.
possible.
Man, it was an advice. There's no need to make us cry. I'm gonna fucking follow everything you said.
You should.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and
Beautiful.
thank you very much, everybody, for listening. Muchas gracias a todos. Why should I do it in Spanish? If they don't speak English, they left a while ago.
Voy
But
a repetir lo que dijo, lo que no hablan ellos, que no creo que nadie esté aquí si no habla español.
no, if you
No
don't
sé todo el
speak,
programa, que nadie habla español. Y
if
sigue
you don't
aquí.
speak English, you're not here anymore. But it's okay.
No, sí, lo que dijo básicamente es, sean chingones.
And that's
Sean
it.
chingones con ustedes. Quédense un vergo y háblense, ¿no?
Okay, that's it.
Great. Okay, I'll email you. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. It was great.
Great. Take care.
No, wait.
I was about to stop it.
Yeah, there's gonna be a second, of course, when you have your record out.
Okay.
I hope we're gonna be the ones that take it out.
Great.
Okay. Thank you so much.
That's
Bye. See ya.
Bye-bye.